Now we will start with user module. So we are going to create a list of modules. Okay. So right now we are not having any controller. That's why I haven't tested this application anywhere. The initial controller that was app.controller.ts, I have deleted it already. So let's try to create some controller, and let's set up our users first, and then we'll move to authentication. So to do that, what I need, I'll be doing it manually. So what I can do here is I can create a controller file, and that will be user.controller.ts. Okay, and I'm gonna export class user controller, and I need to annotate it with controller annotation. And you can also use NestJS CO and the controller name. We'll see it sometime in other controller, like how we can generate it with the command. But if you are beginner, I would recommend to write it from scratch. Okay, I'm just gonna write constructor. So since I will need it, I may need it, but I don't know right now whether I will need it or not. But I usually write it in advance. Okay, I'll also need one service. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna write user.service.ts. I'm going to define a class user service, and this I will be defining one constructor here. And right now it is just a general class. I can make this provider by writing injectable. Okay, now I need to put it in user module. So what I'm gonna do, meanwhile, first I will import user service, and now I'm gonna add one property controllers, and here I'm gonna use user controller. Okay, so now we have controller, module, and service. What else? I would say let's define DTO. Let me create one folder DTO and one folder for entity, which will be, so what is entity and what is DTO? So DTO are the data structure, data format will be using for response, I mean request and response. Let's say we want to pass some data in certain format, then we'll create some class for that, and that type will be a kind of create request data type. And entity is something we will define one class, and that will represent a table in our SQLite database. So let's define entity first, since we need to know like what fields are there in the database. So in user entity dot ts, and we'll keep on modifying based on other modules we build, since we need to define the associations as well, right? So let's define a class, export class user entity, and instead of user entity I can just name it user. And to make this entity, first I need to define, annotate it with entity. And usually the tables, in database tables, we name the classes with small. If we don't override this thing, if we don't define name here, TypeORM will automatically create table with this name. So I don't want it to create tables with this coding format. I want it to be in small case and plural. Okay, next I'm going to define properties, the columns in database. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to define email string. I'm going to need ID, so ID will be number. So you can use id as string as well, but for this project I'm keeping all the ids as number. Let's say auto incremented number. We can also use it as a string. Maybe we can define id as uuid, but for simplicity I'm using id as number just for 1 2 3 4 and this type of numbers. Okay, other property can be password string. Password will definitely be string. Profile picture string, and let's say password profile picture, we can make it optional, and we can define phone number optional string. In bio, just short description about the person. Address line 1 string. Address line 2 string. What else? City, we can define city. We can define it as string, and definitely we can later on try replace it with some enum. If we create some enum, or then we can do that as well. Right now we are using SQLite, so some types in SQLite are not valid, like for example enum type, so I'm just keeping it as string. So state. Next, what else I can do? Zip code, and this will be a string. And date of birth, date. Okay, and later on we'll come visit here and see what else we can define. For example, we need created at date. This is, I guess, mandatory, since we'll always have created at when this data will be created, and updated at will be date. Okay, most of the time it this question mark will not make any sense for TypeORM, since we'll have to define it in the annotations. Right now it's just a class properties, but TypeORM doesn't know like what are these columns and how will name the column names. So we'll have to define it differently. Let's say this way. So we are going to write it as column. So for ID, for primary key, we use primary generated column, and here we can define a strategy, like how we want to generate it. So we have strategy, like we have want to increment, we want to UID. So by default it will increment, so I will keep it by default increment. And in options, like you can go and choose what are the generation type. So generated column type can be this thing, and you can also use UID as well. So if you'll find it somewhere, UID. So it depends on how we want to keep it in our project, and if we are following the UID, then we can do it. Let me just close other tabs. Okay, I'll go back here, and now this thing is primary generated column, and to make a property column we need to annotate it with column. Okay, I'll quickly annotate each and every one as column, and then I will come back again to configure. I'm just keeping one line of space between two columns so that we will able to see it properly. Okay, now okay, so in every table we'll be using id and created at as well as updated at. So these are common fields we will need in each and every table. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a folder in common. I will name it as entity. So I'm keeping all the folder name as you can say in singular, and I will name all the table as plural. Okay, so I'll follow the same coding standards. If you want, you can keep it in plural. Also, I will name all the endpoint names as plural. So that's also up to like the choice how people want to do it. So I'm going to create one base entity, base.entity.ts, and this one what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create export class base entity, and then I'm going to copy, I'm going to cut this and paste it here. Let me just place it side by side here. Okay, and this two as well. Also, one thing, you don't want to find time manually. Instead, database has features like they can create timestamps by default, like it can be created automatically. So it has this special uh, column name, column annotation created at created date column. Okay, now for update we can use updated date column. All right, now we want to do few more things here. We want to define these fields differently. We don't want, if we don't want to keep this field as create in camel case, if we want to keep it in underscore, then what we can do, we can rename it as well. Name created at, and here we need to define type equal to date time. Okay, okay, in other databases like MySQL, SQL, so what you can do, you can use timestamps. In SQLite, timestamp is not supported, so we use date and time for that. If you use a timestamp, then it will throw some error. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use it as updated at. Now now what I can do, I can use this base entity and extend my user class. Let me close it from here now and go back in user class, user entity. Now I just want to extend it with the base entity, and I can import the base entity. Okay, now it will automatically have those columns. Okay, let's define types for each column in database. So what we can do there, so to do that, I can just, so if the field is already in small case in one word, then probably we'll not need to overwrite it, since we just want comma separated multiple words in small, so it is already one word and small, so we don't need to write something like name, email. So since that will automatically be created if we don't define it here, then the name which TypeORM will use to create a column name will be picked from the properties name. Okay, all right, so let's go and define some properties. Type varchar, varchar, and length, let's keep it 150, unique equal to true. Okay, in password I can use type varchar, and let's follow the double quotes. If we are following double quotes, then let's follow the this everywhere, and 100 will be fine. Password 100 is not required, I think 20, and we also want to have some limitations. We can also modify it. So in DTO we can add further validation like min length, max length, but here we'll keep it simple. We'll use variable character. So if we are using, if user is entering small characters, small length, then the memory will not be taken of 20. The advantage of varchar is this. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna define profile picture. So let me just copy and paste it, it will be quicker. So in profile picture, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove length, I'm gonna remove length, but I will be adding nullable true. I forgot to add one property, name. This will be a string, and let me just copy it. It shouldn't be unique. Let's keep it 100, and find password is 20 character, profile is nullable true, phone number will have this thing, similar thing here for phone number as well. Let's do nullable, and let's define the length for phone number. We can add further validation in DTO. Okay, and next is bio. So for bio will be a large text, so what we can do, we can use type equal to text, and this is nullable true, and then we can define type. For address line we can define type equal to varchar, so we will be using varchar, and this is nullable as well true. Let's do one thing, let's define the length as well, 255 or something like that. So for line address line 2 I can use the same thing for address line 2. Next, zip code. So we have the zip code. Before zip code, I think we have the city. For the city, let me just do one thing. City, I'll keep it 100 is fine. And for state, I'm gonna do same thing. For state, let's keep it smaller since 100 characters is too much. And for the zip code, what I'm gonna do, zip code 10 character is fine. Date of birth, it will be actually a date, so we'll have to change a bit. So date time, no time, just date. So I can remove this length and mark it as nullable. Okay, so if something goes wrong I will come back here and fix this. Meanwhile, let's create DTO, and otherwise it will be very difficult to manage the data types. Okay, so now we are going to write create user DTO.ts. I'll create one more, update user DTO.ts. So what we are going to do, we are going to write export class create user DTO, and we'll write properties here. Before that, what I want is I want to write export class update user DTO, and I want to extends it with partial type. It might not be here since it might be not here because of the library. Actually, I need to install the library. Okay, hold on. Create user DTO. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna install one library, pnpmi @NestJS mapped types. Okay, now if I try to import this,